It took me just a few moments to realize we switched the platform. So thank you, whoever made that decision within the city. Thank you. All right, so with that, we start. Let me establish quorum. Let me actually go through all the commissioners. Vice Chair Banerjee, I see you. And we have Suresh Venkatraman. Okay, wonderful. I see you. Commissioner Katz, I see you. Commissioner Schneidner, I see you. And congrats on your reappointment, Tom and Stacey. And let me see, Commissioner Oyang. Okay, I don't see her yet. Commissioner Ambiel, I think I just see you signing on. And picture, there you go. I see thumbs up. So we have so far one commissioner missing. Hopefully we'll see Cindy sign on any moment now. All right, so with that, we go to the Pledge of Allegiance. As usual, we recite it in private. I'll give everyone 20 seconds to do it so in private. All right, very well. Okay, so we start as usual with items not on the agenda. So if there are any public comments from the audience on items not on the agenda, this is your chance to share your thoughts. I think I see one hand. Roberta, is that correct?
Yes. Hi, good evening.
All right,
How are you?
Roberta, I give you 3 minutes. Go ahead. Can you hear me, Roberta?
Yes, I can hear, and you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can indeed. You get 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yes. So I know that last week the master plan was approved, and I have to say that there are some areas that I'm very, very concerned about. And you know, in watching the Finance Commission meeting, we are at 16% of our reserves. We're supposed to have, you know, 20%, 60%, and the plan means it's going to take more than 2 years, probably to 3 years, to get back to our reserve numbers. And I did see that you guys want $4 million to put in protected bike lanes along San Antonio Road and El Monte, and I have a really big concern about that. Number one, financially. Number two, because you know, obviously nobody wants anybody to be hurt on a bicycle, nor does anybody want anybody to be in a car accident. I don't think that that's the issue. I think that we have rules of the road, and that having a protected bike lane with bollards or some other barricade, it's a route for the ambulances and the fire trucks, and the rules of the road say that to move right. But if there's bollards or a barrier, you can't move right. And I feel that the commission has gone, that they're not moderate enough in the solutions that they're coming up with. I think that they're ignoring the residents who live in Los Altos. I've seen you take parking spaces away from people on Almond. I see, you know, the recommendations, and it's not you, of course, it's council is making the decision. Trying to remove 248 parking spaces from El Camino, which I think is very anti-business for small business. So I would hope that you would start to be a little bit more conservative in the approaches that you take. With housing, a lot more congestion. And, you know, I was actually speaking to one of the commissioners earlier that said, okay, so San Antonio Road is now targeted for smaller cell towers. And San Antonio Road is targeted for more apartments. And San Antonio Road is targeted for more protected bike lanes. I just, like I said, I think that you are not getting the pulse of the community. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Roberta. Anyone else from the members of the public who wish to speak on items not on the agenda? Going once, going twice. All right, I don't see any more requests. And let it be noted that Commissioner Oyang just joined the meeting, so we have all 7 commissioners in participating. Great. So with that, we're going to move to item number 1 on the agenda, which is really the selection and election of the new officers of this commission. So let me actually start with a few comments before we do that. I was checking my notes, and I actually became chair in May of 2018. So I think it is much time for new blood to take over and then share some new ideas and take the leadership seat here. So let me share with you what it really means to be chair. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that, to the point that you feel comfortable putting your hat in the ring here for the nominations. And Stacey, by all means, also you should chime in and share your thoughts also on the vice chair role. But I want to sort of share with everyone what the chair role is. And so historically, really, it is essentially the officers of the commission. And as a chair, you get to chair the meetings, plus participate in all the preparation for the meetings, in particular, as you work with the staff and the vice chair in setting the agenda. There's all that prep that needs to go beforehand. And also you get to represent the commission with the vice chair in front of the city council. So essentially, these are, I would say, the high level description of the role. There is more time commitments. In my estimation, at least from my history, it takes roughly about 2x the workload that you have currently. So whatever time that you think you've been spending the last couple of years on the commission, roughly 50% to double that is what I would estimate the expectation. Stacey, you want to add any comments on the vice chair role?
No, I think what you've said is good, Nadeem. It's the
Great.
vice chair participating with the staff in the agenda planning and other things, and just representing the commission with the city council. Yeah.
Great. So I think we have now new commissioners who've joined us. Tom, you've also been reappointed now for your real official first term. And everyone had the chance to sort of see the commission in action. And so I want to encourage all of you to consider seriously participating or nominating yourself or nominating someone else into the chair or the vice chair seat. So the way the process works tonight is very simple. So we actually follow a reduced version of the Roberts rule. And so first we start with nominations from the floor, i.e. from the commission itself. And so you either get to nominate yourself, and I'll go around the table, sort of each one of you, or you get to nominate someone else. If someone else nominates you, then you either get to accept the nomination or you decline the nomination. And once we've done that for the chair position, we do it again for the vice chair position. And then we'll get to vote on the nominations in front of us. Does that make sense? Okay. So with that, I'm going to actually start with nominations from the commission for the chair position. Wow, silence is deafening.
Chair, I thought you said you were going to go through one at a time.
Yes, indeed. I was actually trying to solicit volunteers first, but I think I will do that. I would start with, let's go alphabetical order, actually. So the first one would be Commissioner Ambia.
Your request is for me to nominate someone?
Yes,
For clarification?
yourself or someone else.
I nominate Suresh Venkatraman for chair.
Okay, and vice chair? Or maybe actually let's do it in rotation. Let's just do first chair and then we'll do the vice chair. Thanks, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, it's the next would be Stacey Banerjee, Vice Chair Banerjee.
Thanks. I think I'm just going to let the other commissioners see if they have any nominations for people.
Okay. Next would be, let's see, Commissioner Cutts.
Chair, would it be appropriate to ask Suresh if he accepts the nomination before we proceed?
Well, thank you for, yes, thank you for, yes, indeed. Suresh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Suzanne. I'll wait for everyone's inputs before I make a decision.
Okay, very well. Okay. I think then would be Commissioner Schneider.
I think I'll follow Stacey and just kind of abstain for right now.
Okay. And then Commissioner Yang.
I would have nominated Suresh as well.
Okay. I think I'm missing someone.
Cats.
Of course,
Mr.
and
Katz.
Venk, I mean, yeah, Suresh himself, yeah, I was like, yeah, of course. And then Suresh, of course, you're the last one before me.
Did Commissioner Katz get a chance to voice his
He
opinion?
did, yes, he did.
Okay,
He
all right,
passed,
missed
yes.
that. Thank you.
And Suresh, you're a V,
Okay.
so you'll be the last one for me.
I would like to nominate Stacey Banerjee as chair.
Okay. Very well. All right, and I'm gonna sit silent here since I think we do have two nominations on the floor. So we've got Stacey, you've been nominated. Do you accept the nomination, or what? We should have asked you the same question actually that we asked Suresh earlier.
I'm happy to accept the nomination. I think it depends now what the majority of the commission wants to do.
Okay, very well. So we have, let's see how we can vote on this thing. We don't have any, so maybe Marisa, I think, can you please do the roll call? I think it would be more appropriate for the city staff to do the roll call here and then sort of have you collect the names from each of the commissioner. And then you get to select one of the two nominees, Suresh or Stacey.
Okay, sure. So roll call is going to go through all the commissioners and ask for their nominations.
No, we've done the nominations already. So I think we have nominations.
Okay,
And
so
I
go
should have let
through
you
and-
do the nominations. I apologize. I should have had you probably do the nominations instead of me, but we do have two nominees now on the floor. So Suresh and Stacey. And I think right now we need to get the commission to vote. And so if you can just do a roll call on each one of the commissioner and have them pick one of the two names to vote for.
Sure. So go through the list of commissioners and ask for their vote. And will you be voting, Nadeem, as well?
Sorry?
Will you be voting as well?
I will be voting, maybe, yeah. At the last, I think I want to make sure that I'm as neutral as possible.
Okay. I will start with Tom.
I'll vote for Stacey.
And then I'll go to Cindy.
I will also vote for Stacey, even though I said I was going to nominate Suresh.
And then Suzanne.
Suresh.
And Steve.
I will vote for Suresh.
Mhm. And should we have Suresh and Stacey vote? Suresh
I'll vote for Stacey.
and Stacey.
Thank you, Suresh, for the vote of support. So I think I will vote for myself then.
Okay, and Nadeem.
Okay, so I will just let the vote stand. I'm not gonna bias it one way or the other. So we have 4,
So we have 4
2,
for
and I'll
Stacey.
abstain. Yeah.
Okay, so 4 for Stacey.
Look, Chair, we made your job easy here. You may have had to break the tie.
Yeah, I was hoping not to. And you guys, did it for me. So thank you. Okay, so Marissa, if you could do one more favor and now kind of do the roll call for nominating a vice chair.
Sure. Let's see, so we can go through everyone and have the nomination. So why don't I start with Stacey?
I'm gonna defer to other people now to nominate.
Okay, how about Tom
I'll nominate Suresh.
and Cindy?
Same. Same. I don't know if you heard.
Oh, I
I
didn't.
don't-
Suresh? And
I vote for
Suzanne?
myself.
Okay. Suresh. And Suzanne?
Sorry. Nadeem, are you out of the running?
I am.
Suresh?
Steve?
Suresh.
Okay. Shall we have the vote as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll go in the same order. So Tom
Suresh.
and Cindy
Suresh.
and Suzanne
Suresh?
and Steve
Suresh.
and Suresh. Do you vote for yourself?
Yes.
Okay, I think we have a winner.
Congratulations. Therefore, it really gives me great pleasure to hand the baton to Stacey, and Suresh, congratulations on the succession planning here. So Stacey, you get to be chair. Congratulations. You
Thank
can
you.
continue the meeting.
Thank you, Nadeem. And congratulations also on your reappointment to this commission. We're glad to have you continuing with us. Your shoes as chair will not be easy to fill, but I know myself and the new vice chair will do our best. And again, we're glad to still have you on the commission. So I think moving on to our next agenda item, it's the VTA. Oh, we have the VTA B-Pac appointing Los Altos Complete Street Commission representative.
So the idea there is that we need to appoint someone from the Complete Streets Commission to the VTA B-Pac. And I know Stacey, I think you have been doing that in the past. Is that right?
That's correct. I've been doing it for the last 2 years and a few months, filling Commissioner Brinsfield's seat before that. It's a 2-year term, as I understand, Marisa.
Okay. And so it sounds like it is coming to an end soon. Is that right?
Yeah, the terms come to an end every 2 years and people have to either be reappointed or somebody else has to be appointed. And
Okay.
yeah.
So perhaps we should go through the same process that we just went through to see who we should nominate for the coming
Yeah.
term.
I think that's a good idea. I think the other thing that I would just like to tell the commission as we're selecting nominees for this is I'm currently serving as the chair of the VTA B-Pac, and that's not aligned with the appointment terms, which is coming up now. The chair term of the VTA B-Pac is a calendar year term. So I'm serving as the chair of the VTA B-Pac till the end of this calendar year. And I would like to ask to continue to do that. I think it'd be disruptive to the VTA B-Pac committee if I was in the middle of the chair term not to continue with that.
Okay. That makes sense. So the request then is to remain as the representative on the B-Pac because you are currently the chair through the end of the year.
That's correct.
Okay, so do we all need to vote on that to make that official? If so, I'll just run through everybody again. Let's see, Cindy, is that okay with you?
Yes.
And Tom
Sure. I'm okay with it.
And Suzanne
Yes.
and Steve
Yes.
and Suresh,
Yes.
Nadeem. Okay, I think we can approve that then.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the support for this commission for that. And next time around, if someone else would like to carry this banner, you're welcome to do so. So let's move to the next item, which is the transportation analysis and the VMT LOS checklist and update. Marisa, is
Thank
this
you.
a consent item still, or is this something you wanted to present?
This is a consent item. So I posted a staff report with some background information. This is something that we've talked about at the commission a couple of times. The commission most recently decided to create a subcommittee to review all of the TDM and BMT checklists in detail. That committee met twice for, I think it was an hour and a half or so each time. And that was a focused discussion with Michelle. Michelle's here right now to answer any questions if you have them. Thanks for being here, Michelle. The request is to approve those checklists and worksheets so that they can move forward.
Okay, thank you for that. So does anyone have any questions on this item, or otherwise we can, since this was a consent calendar item, thank the committee and entertain a motion to approve it?
And I did get one comment from one of the commissioners right before this meeting that the user guide was not included in the attachments. So I will upload that as well.
I'm not seeing, and on my computer screen, I don't have a big monitor, so I can't see everyone always in the video pane, but feel free to raise your hands. And since I'm not really seeing any questions or hands up for public comments, I would take a motion to approve this on the consent.
I will move to approve the transportation analysis subject to uploading the user guide to the website.
Thank you, Commissioner Maloof. And is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, this is Suresh here. I second the motion. I really like to thank the subcommittee. I think you've done a good job. It's pretty clear now. The checklists are well organized, and it's it's pretty easy to follow. So that's a great job. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. So we're going to take a vote. I think if you want to raise your hands, either your blue virtual hands or just put your hand up in the air. But if you're putting it up in the air, keep it up because it's going to take me a minute to look at all the video screens. So I see Nadeem, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So all those in favor?
We have 7 people in favor. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. So let's move to the next item. The next item is the St. Joseph Sidewalk Gap Closure Project. And this is an informational update on the status of this project, which, as Jaime said before the meeting, is tied to the repaving project we have on St. Joseph.
Yes, and Nafis will be presenting this project.
Great. Please go ahead with the presentation then.
Nafis, you are on mute.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. And do you guys see my slides?
Yes.
Or the note? Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Nafis Majd, and thank you so much for joining us on this call. I'm the civil engineer with the City of Los Altos, and today we'd like to present the updates of the St. Joseph Sidewalk Gap Closure Project, which is also in line with the Safe Route to School Improvement Plan to the Montclair Elementary School. A little bit background about this project. The proposed work is within the limits of the St. Joseph Ave street resurfacing improvements, which is planned for this summer, the summer of 2022. And the concept plan for this work was initiated in spring 2021. And as you will see in the next slides, it is also in line with the Safe Route to School Improvement Plan, the improvement maps for the Montclair Elementary School area. And tonight's discussion is about the 15% concept plan layout for this project. And we are proposing one option for this improvement today. The improvement area, as you can see, is this red line shown here on the St. Joseph Ave between Rubbles Ranch Road and the Deodora Drive here. And it's located on the northeast side of the St. Joseph Ave. And as shown on this slide, this is also, this gap closure is along the complete street master plan. I've showed a magnified view here for you. So this is the Montclair Elementary School, and this is the CSMP, and this is the project site, the small red circle. And in this slide, we're showing the Safe Route to School Improvement Plan here. And the red circle here shows the limits of this project, which is item 5 here. And item 5 is enlarged as to fill the gap in the sidewalk along the St. Joseph between Rubbles Ranch and Deodora. And this last slide is the 15% concept layout that we're showing here. We have proposed a traditional sidewalk with curb and gutter. And after performing the survey for this area, the design team provided us with the information that they can do the traditional sidewalk. And so that is our preferred way to go to be consistent along this corridor with the other proposed improvements. And here we are proposing 18.5 feet, which 10 feet of that would be the travel lane, and we're allowing for buffered bike lane between the vehicle lane and the curb and gutter. We do have some limitations like this existing pole, which we have to maintain. And this is at the edge of the Rubbles Ranch Road intersection with St. Joseph. And because we couldn't show this all on the slide, so the rest of it is shown down here. This is the match line. So after this, we come back here, and this is Capus Trano Way, and Deodora will be down here. And for this area, we're removing the asphalt sidewalk that we have, which is not in a really good shape. And we're doing the traditional sidewalk similar to this area, just to conform with the rest of the city and allow for curb and gutter in this area. Jaime, did you have anything else to add on this slide?
No, I just would add on that although this is, let me back up, this project will be built as part of the upcoming annual street resurfacing project, as Nafis mentioned. And so the signage and striping work, which isn't shown here, this is just showing the layout of curb and gutter. The signage and striping for this project will be added to the larger St. Joseph Avenue signage and striping plan for the resurfacing program. But we are aiming for buffered bicycle lanes to match the buffered bicycle lanes that were already proposed near Diradora to Foothill Expressway. So they'll all tie in together, and so that's the other thing I would add.
Thank you. And that was the update we wanted to bring here to the commission and to the public. And if there's any questions or comments, we're happy to hear that.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think what I'm going to do first is take commissioner questions and comments and then see if there's any public comments. Commissioners, raise your hand if you have.
Stacey, I have a question.
Go ahead, please, Commissioner Katz.
And this is a question, not a comment. I noticed that the plan includes a flashing beacon crosswalk. And I know that a lot of the primary schools in Los Altos have crosswalks that do not have flashing beacons. And I'm wondering, just in the, my question is around consistency, which is, how do we determine, or how does staff determine which crosswalk should receive flashing beacons, and what causes that determination?
Nafis, I can jump in if it's okay with you. So that might be something a little bit more specific to an item later tonight, where we're talking about pedestrian activated flashing beacons. I think it's item 7. But to answer your question about this specific project, there is no pedestrian activated beacon proposed as part of the project. There is an existing flashing beacon at St. Joseph and Diodora, and we were just highlighted in this drawing that existing beacon is there, but there is no new beacon being installed as part of the project.
Jaime, thank you. That clarifies completely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner just Snyder, is your hand up from before, or do you have a question on this one? I'm not hearing anything, so I'll move to Commissioner Malouf.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Maybe you have mentioned that, Nafis, and I missed it. The schedule, I guess, for this project, when do you expect to break ground, assuming that we go through all the steps, roughly, just general framework?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Marissa, but I think we're hoping to finish the sidewalk right before the schedule for the St. Joseph resurfacing improvements in the summer.
Yes, exactly.
Summer
So
of
this
22,
time.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And then the second quick question is, what is the budget allocation for this project? Do we have an estimate or not yet?
We're still waiting for the final estimate from the design team putting the drawing together, Harrison Engineering. So between now and the end of April, the plan is to finalize the design. And then at that time, we'll return to the commission as part of your April meeting with a final design layout. At that time, we'll also include the striping for St. Joseph. We'll have a more firm number, but the construction is being included within the annual street resurfacing program. So we're adjusting which streets get done in the city to make sure that we can build this project.
Okay, thank you.
And the Vice Chair.
Thank you. I think it's a similar question as Commissioner Malouf. But I guess tied to that is the surfacing of the pedestrian way itself is designed to match the rest of the St. Joseph's Avenue? Is that the intention?
Yeah, so the reason for only bringing forward to you one concept for the sidewalk gap closure is when we were doing the community engagement for the larger St. Joseph Avenue discussions. At the time, we weren't sure what type of facility we would be able to build. We didn't think at first that we would be able to get in an actual sidewalk, which is why, if you recall back on the prior discussions, we thought maybe there might need to be something that's like an at grade with the street level, with some type of a a class 4, like a vertical element in a buffered bike lane to buffer pedestrians. But after we did the survey work, which we had done in March, and the civil engineering firm started, we realized, hey, we can actually make an actual sidewalk work. And a sidewalk does exist to the west of Robles Ranch, and there's an existing sidewalk that the city built again near your door where that existing pedestrian activated flashing beacon was. So rather than trying to have different standard facilities on the street, we narrowed in on a single sidewalk section, 6 inches above the roadway, standard concrete, and that is just a cleaner design for the community.
Okay, thanks. And then the striping plan will come with the final design.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other commissioners with questions on this item? I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I'll take the opportunity to ask if there's any members of the public who have comments on this item. You can just raise the, click on participants and then push the raise hand button. Any members of the public? I am not seeing any members of the public with their hands up. So any final comments from the commission for staff on this item? And I'll also, while we're waiting to see if there's any other comments from the commissioners, I'll also ask staff, since this was an informational update, I'm assuming you received what you wanted from the commission thus far as just their questions and comments. Is there anything else that you wanted?
I think we got everything we needed.
Okay, thank you, Jaime. And the Vice Chair, Suresh, is your hand up with additional comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. So it sounds like staff has everything they want on this item. So let's move on to item number 5, which is approving the minutes for February 23rd. Does anybody have any changes or anything with the minutes? Or are we ready to just take a motion to approve the minutes? I'm not seeing any changes, so can I call for a motion? Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make it easy. I move to approve the minutes of 23rd of February, 2022.
Thank you, Nadeem. And does someone want to do a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Steve. So we have a motion and a second, and do you want to raise your hands for people who vote yes on this approving the minutes? So we have everybody's hand up for that. So that passes unanimously, 7-0. And let's move to the next item. Item 6 is the Hetch Hetchy Trail Crossing. We had this item on our agenda earlier this year, and I know Marisa was bringing it back. So I'll turn it over to you, Marisa, to give us an update on the design of this item.
Thank you. I will pull up my PDF to share.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll just let everyone know we'll have you give a presentation and we'll take some commissioner questions, and then we'll open it up to public comments, and then we can come back with any final commission discussion items.
Okay. So this is an item, as Stacey said, that we talked about a couple of meetings ago. I think it was 2 meetings ago in January. And we presented the commission and the public at that meeting with kind of a list and some images of some different options. And we discussed, you know, what we liked and what we didn't like, and kind of the pros and cons of all of the different options. So the direction at the time was to kind of take what we had heard in that meeting and work it into a like a signage and striping plan and bring that back for review. So that's what we are doing today. So I will share the PDF. And this is what came out of our conversation a couple months ago. So I put together a signage and striping plan for one location. This is at Estrella Way. And the idea, I think, is that if we like the treatments used here, we would use those at the other location as well, which is at the crossing of Los Altos Ave. Los Altos Ave only really has the trail condition on kind of one side, because on the other side, the trail kind of transitions to a sidewalk before it kind of meets the crossing. So the improvements that we talk about today would probably be only added to that one side that actually meets the street. So we can kind of go into some of the things here. This is a list that came directly from what we talked about last time. So the first and almost the reason for this project is to create ADA compliant curb ramps at the crossing. So that would happen on both sides of both crossings. And we also talked about bicyclist speeds being really important and something that we were concerned about and wanting to kind of slow down bicycle speeds and also potentially slow down some vehicle speeds to try to keep everybody safe. So one of the most basic element is obviously the ADA compliant curb ramps, and those would extend all the way across the width of the path. And that's kind of, you know, best practice so that bikes and peds all have a lot of space to navigate the ramp. And then we have a high visibility crosswalk. And then we have the yield lines on either side. And so for cars approaching the crossing, they would see first this kind of crossing ahead sign, then they would see the yield line with the yield here to pedestrians, and bikes would be obviously included in this as well. And the standard distance here is about 20 feet. So the yield lines would be about 20 feet back from the crosswalk. And then immediately adjacent to the trail would be this trail crossing sign. So that would warn drivers in both directions. And then as far as the bike improvements, we wanted to have some markings and signs to warn bikes to slow down in advance of the crossing. So we have this marking here, we could add a sign as well. And then these lines are what we call an optical speed bar or optical speed bars. So this is a treatment that's frequently used for cars. You've probably seen it. I know there's one in Los Altos, kind of on the north side of the city. I forget exactly what street it's on. But usually it's used for cars. And the idea is that the lines get closer together because that gives it the sensation when you are riding or driving over them that you are going faster because they're coming at you faster, which causes you to reflexively slow down. So this is something that has been really effective in other places. And then we also added a stop marking and a stop bar for the bikes and a stop sign for the bikes. We have a bollard here in the middle, which would be reflective with the standard Caltrans standard diamond marking around it, and also a center line for the bikes and probably an edge line as well, because that kind of gives the feeling that the path is narrowing and also causes a slower approach. So that would be the same on both sides for this crossing on Estrellita, and it would be likely just on the east side for Los Altos Avenue, where the path directly hits the street. And another thing we talked about last time was a potential raised crossing at Los Altos Avenue. I have reached out to the fire department to kind of get their blessing on that, and we're still waiting to hear back. So that's still an option for Los Altos Ave, but not recommended for Estrellita. So I think that is kind of the summary of improvements that we are looking at, and open to feedback and questions at this time.
Thank you for that presentation, Marisa. So do any commissioners have any questions? You can raise your blue hand or you can just put your regular hand up. Oh, Suzanne, I see you waving.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A couple questions for City. What is the color of the paint that will be used for those speed bars, for the bikes, for the crosswalk, and the shark teeth? Will that be yellow or white?
The speed bars, the optical speed bars and the yield teeth would be white. The crossing would be white because it's not in a school zone. This one in particular, I would have to check if the other one is in a school zone. I think it might be on Los Altos Avenue. And the only thing that would be yellow in this instance is the center lines.
Thank you. And it feels like there are a lot of signs, and that leads to a lot of sign clutter, and the more signs you have, the less people pay attention. Are all of those signs required? Are any of them optional?
This one is optional.
Which is this one?
Can
Okay,
you see
that
my
one.
mouse? The crossing
Yes,
ahead
okay.
sign. So these two are optional, and these are required, and these are recommended.
Sorry,
And
Marissa,
the
can
yellow
you
sign that is something cross traffic, are those required as well? Yes, that one.
Oh, this one, yes, I didn't mention these. I forgot to talk about them. So this was something that we talked about last time as well, which was signage that warns bicycles that the kind of cross traffic might not stop. So those are optional.
Thank you. That's much better. I can see it now. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have done that earlier.
And last question,
Yep.
the dotted pattern is actually the truncated domes. That is the rough part of the surface that indicates a change from the path to the street. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, and the slope of that is appropriate for someone who might be in a stroller or in a wheelchair and would have to self-propel up and over that?
Yeah, the slope of that would be determined by ADA requirements.
Thank you. All my questions.
Thank you. Other commissioners with questions? Nadeem, I see you with your hand up. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, Marisa. Remind me, last time we talked about resurfacing that path was, is it going to be resurfaced? At least that portion that we're restriping, is it going to be resurfaced, or what is going to be the status of the surface pavement?
No, as far as I know, there's no plan to resurface the path itself. So the only construction work would be at these ramp areas.
Who owns the responsibility of resurfacing? Is it, obviously it's not ours, we don't own the path. Is it Hetchetchee?
I'd imagine it might be the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC. I might know the answer to that, but yeah, it's there. The path is there right away.
Caught me with my mouth full. But my understanding is that the trail operates as an encroachment permit from the city issued by the PUC. So I believe the trail is actually Los Altos to maintain.
Oh, so it is ours to maintain as a surface. Oh,
May I speak? This is Jim Sandoval.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we maintain the path for bikes and peds, although it also is a service road to the PUC. So we would need to check the agreement to see exactly who has responsibility for pavement. Depending on the condition of the path, it might be a good idea to put a slurry coat down so that the painted lines really pop.
right. And so, Jim, I guess if we have the responsibility of maintenance, yes, I want to echo what you just said here, but who pays for it? I mean, we get to the maintenance, but they pay us for it, or we have to pay for it?
Well, as a matter of fact, the maintenance agreement is currently under discussion between the legal teams of the city and the PUC. It's a long story, but the PUC has asked the city to take on even more maintenance, and so we're kind of currently negotiating that possibility. Otherwise, there might be a fee to us to use the trail. So to be continued. We don't have an answer at this point.
Can you please keep us posted? Thank you.
Yes.
And Nadeem, any other questions? I see with your mic on mute. Okay, no. Any other commissioners with questions? Steve, Commissioner Katz, you have your hand up.
Do we have a representation of what Los Altos Avenue will look like?
No, I don't have a representation of that.
Okay. Will Los Altos Avenue have the same speed bars that are being proposed in this drawing?
That was the idea, yeah.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair.
We see that we have these speed bars on one side of the street, implying that the traffic's at least the bicycles to stick to that side. I think I understand the intention, but that delineation of those lanes is not available throughout the entire path. So I was wondering if that would be confusing. Would you just make the stripes go across the entire width of the of the path there, of the bike and ped path? It's just a question trying to understand.
Yeah, I think the stripes could certainly go all the way across. I didn't draw them that way just because I wanted to kind of limit the amount of visual clutter. But that is something that we could decide to do, have them extend all the way across for that kind of reason.
It could increase visibility, especially if there's some curves ahead on either side of the path. So. Okay, and then the other question about the bollards. I saw that in your notes that you have those bollards that are reflective and so on. Do you have an idea of how far back from the ramp the bollards would be placed?
I drew them in here. I would have to check the standards to see if there's kind of a required distance, but I think they would be probably about as close as they can be. So not within the ramp area, but just behind that.
And those bollards are removable?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. And what would the material be on the bollards?
That's something we would have to decide.
Any other questions, Vice Chair?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners with questions? I'm not seeing anyone, but if I missed you, just go ahead and speak up, commissioners. So I think now we'll open it up to public comments. Do any members of the public have any comments or questions on this item? You can go ahead and click participants and then raise hand. And raise your hand. So I see one member of the public so far with their hand up. We'll start with you, and then if anyone else raises their hand in the meantime, we'll come back to them. So I'll call on Roberta Phillips, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak. So please go ahead, Roberta.
Yeah. Hi. I assume you can hear me. Just shake your head. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I counter signs. There were 10 signs there, which seems, again, I have a really short amount of time, so I think it's overkill. I think it's sign pollution. I think it's unnecessary, and then you've got crosswalk bars and bollards and stripes and arrows, and this is just a really small area, and there's an expression, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple. This is just, major overkill. And of course, as you know, I am completely against the bollards any place. I think that they're more dangerous than they protect people, kids, or even experienced bikers. If the weather is wet or there's any kind of thing that bikes can slip, less safety for the bicyclists. So eliminate as many signs as you can and eliminate the bollards. And that's, my 2 cents. And I know you've been working on this for a long time. So I'm glad that you're addressing it, but let's not have overkill again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comment this evening. Next, I'm going to call on Jerry Rosenbloom. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay. I had a question. I missed some of the presentation. Where would the speed bumps be?
There are no speed bumps as a part of this project.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody ask a question about speed bumps. Okay. Well, I just want to say that I wanted to express my appreciation for the residents of Esterlita Way for the amount of consideration that the commissioners and the staff have taken to our concerns about the safety of the crossing. And for myself, I would simply say that all things considered, I would be satisfied with the staff recommendation.
Thank you for your comments and your question this evening, Mr. Rosenbloom, and for attending our meeting. Is there anyone else from the public that has any comments? Since I'm not seeing any other hands raised,
It's because it's not 7 o'clock.
I'm going to bring it back to the commission for discussion. So who wants to kick off our discussion? Well, Nadeem, I see you with your hand up. You get to go first this time instead of last.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to take advantage of it.
4 years.
No, actually, I'm going to start with a quick question to Marisa. Could you please refresh my memory on the extent of the outreach that you did since our last meeting? You know, how much of that was shared with the neighborhood since our last meeting?
The outreach that we have done has just been through these meetings. So both these meetings were noticed to the neighborhood via sandwich board signs on the trail and also mailers to the neighborhood. Okay.
And therefore, I take it that what you're proposing here is a final design. Is that correct? You want us to sort of say yeah or nay? Is that right?
That would be kind of, the goal. I think, after we had a long conversation about it in January, really, thought through all of the different options. And so I think that, the purpose of this item at this meeting would be to take the next step moving forward. If there are any comments, I'm happy to take those. We can make some adjustments.
Yeah, I'm just going to actually look. I think I want to thank you again. I want to echo what Mr. Rosenbloom said. I want to echo all the thanks to you and residents. This is another example of the kind of collaboration we want to keep seeing between the city and the various neighborhoods. I know that there are comments also here and there about the pollution, the sound pollution, and folks, look, there has to be a compromise. You can't just have it a green field and yet expect that you're going to have all the traffic that's going to be unmitigated. So we have to pick what is it that we want to do. We either want to put signs and control the traffic, or not put signs, and it's going to be the wild west. So I support what you have here, Marisa. I think thank you for working with the residents, and I'm all for it.
Thank you, Nadeem. Other commissioners? And just following off what Nadeem and Marisa has said, the purpose here is we're trying to sort of wrap up our direction on this item tonight. Suzanne, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think my comment is that we should take a second look at the number of signs and ask ourselves which ones are absolutely required and essential by law, which ones are optional, and determine if those optional ones are truly necessary given the paint. I feel like we've doubled down a little bit on the paint, the surface signage and warnings. I think that's a great job. I love the optical painting on the one side, and I prefer it on the one side of the trail rather than extending across both, because then that reinforces the direction of travel we want people to follow. We want people on the right side of the path going one direction, and they should anticipate oncoming traffic on the opposite side. So keeping those optical bars on the one half of the path is my preference. But I would say that the watch for cross traffic and the stop sign is, and the stop on the pavement and the bollard and the optical bars, that seems to be belt and suspenders times 2. So I would ask that maybe we revisit the watch for cross traffic sign. Additionally, on the roadway, again, we have the crosswalk sign, we have the yield sign, and we have a trail crossing sign. We have 3 signs plus the shark teeth. Let's try and get that to the absolute legal requirement and then observe. And if we feel additional signage is needed after a period of observation, go back and revisit it. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And other commissioners? Let's see who else has their hand up. Oh, I see some hands here. I'll go to the vice chair next.
Thank you. With regards to the, so there are a couple of things that came up last time was to provide, additional warning or significant warning in terms of time and distance for the bicyclists as they approach the intersection. And I think that you've accomplished that with two different methods here, both the stripes and the yellow signs. I think either one will serve the purpose. I'm not sure if both are necessary. But if in fact, if you feel that the yellow sign would be necessary, then I think you probably want to move it way inside so it actually has an effect of warning bicyclists. So I think that was my main comment. I think the seems like the speed bars are actually quite effective, will be quite effective. And that actually be more visible than and attract bicyclists' attention more so than the yellow sign. So if that's optional, that's something to consider. And the only other thing that I had a comment on was, and if we install the bollard to see if you can visually make it appealing to the trail to see if there's something that you can match the character of the trail. So those are the two comments I had. Thank you.
Just, I have a couple other thoughts that I'll quickly kind of put into the ring as we kind of go through this conversation. I think one thing to consider is that the bicycle stop sign is, it's a small sign, so it's not the size of a vehicle stop sign. It's only maybe 8 or 10 inches across. And so that'll be small. And this sign would be also small because it would be on the bike trail. I'm also thinking that perhaps just a small plaque under the stop sign that says something like cross traffic may not stop could be a good way to kind of handle both of these at once in a more consolidated way with a kind of smaller impact. And then as far as the signs for the vehicles, I do think we should keep these two in each direction. And I think that maybe the crossing ahead warning sign perhaps makes more sense on the context of Los Altos Avenue, and it could be left out on Estrellita Way since it's such a small, low volume street. So I think that could be a good way to kind of work through some of these comments that we're receiving.
Commissioner Katz.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I like Maurice's suggestion that you just made, and I agree with Suresh that by providing as much warning with the sign on the bike trail as possible will help, especially a few cyclists that are going at a high speed. So let's see if we can provide giving them some warning with some distance there. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other commissioners? Tom, Cindy? Anything? Okay, well, I'm not seeing anyone else. So I think, Marissa, let's wrap this up. It sounds like you have good comments here and have relatively consistent direction to sort of look at the signs and see what's really necessary. I agree with that direction, especially for Estrellita Way. And it sounds like you have some ideas already on how to approach that. Is there anything else you need from the commission, or is there anything you have questions about or that has been inconsistent in the feedback that you just want to make sure we have clarified before we move off of this item?
No, I think I have all the direction that I need.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for bringing back these detailed designs to us. I think with this item outstanding for a couple of years and the challenges in getting the permits, I think we're all glad that this thing is going to get some actual action. And when do you think that you'll actually do the implementation? You may have mentioned that, but I just want to make sure that that's clear for everyone.
The next step will be to reach out to the PUC regarding the encroachment permit. So it'll just depend on how long that process takes.
Yep. Thank you. And Suresh, I see your hand is still up. Did you have anything additional?
I just had a clarification saying, is this design going to mirror on the Los Altos Avenue site as well? Is that the intention? Is that what we're signing off on today as well?
Yeah, that was the intention, was that this treatment would be similar treatment would be used on the east side of Los Altos Avenue. And that's where the path comes straight into the street, just like it does here. And then on the other side of Los Altos Avenue, I know it connects to a short segment of sidewalk, so it's a slightly different condition. So I don't think, maybe the optical speed bars would be appropriate, but I don't think any of the rest of it would be.
Okay. Anything else? I think that's it for this item. So let's move on to the next agenda item. And what I'm seeing next on our agenda is, let's see what we have next. It's the flashing beacons, but I want to see what the official agenda item name is. The Citywide Pedestrian Activated Flashing Beacon System Maintenance. So we're going to provide input on replacement equipment at the existing location where these systems are located. And Marissa, do we have a staff presentation for this item this evening?
We do. Jaime will be leading this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Marisa. Can you see my screen out of curiosity? My slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I always lose the, here we go. Let me run the slide deck now. I apologize. Can I get a confirmation that you can still see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So tonight's item is our citywide pedestrian activated flashing beacon system. Specifically, we're looking from the commission input and hopefully concurrent on identifying and building consensus around a standardized equipment for use at these flashing beacon locations around Los Altos. So currently we have 16 pedestrian activated flashing beacons throughout the city. Most of those beacons are in some type of state of repair, and I'll walk you through those locations shortly. And typically when we install these pedestrian activated flashing beacons, they're installed typically at uncontrolled crosswalk locations. So a crosswalk across a major street like San Antonio or Los Altos Avenue. Well, I don't think we have any Los Altos Avenue, but like Springer Road or Miramonte, Covington, locations like that. And currently within Los Altos, we have 4 different types of vendors because a lot of these crosswalks were installed at different times. And when the installations were made, we didn't have a very specific requirement for a targeted vendor. So we got whatever the contractors got the best pricing on. That's what we ended up with. So what we're looking for today is to have a discussion on standardizing the use of rectangular rapid flashing beacon or RRFB type systems in Los Altos. That's consistent with the last few types of installations that were installed in Los Altos over about the last 5 years. But that would also include the removal of any in-pavement beacon systems that currently exist at some of the older locations, specifically like the ones along San Antonio. And we're seeking input because we're trying to target a repair of all of these broken down flashing beacon systems in Los Altos over the summer while we're doing all this other work in town to be ready for the start of the next school year, because a lot of our crosswalks align with suggested routes to school for schools in Los Altos. So here's a quick map. I'm hoping you can see this. I apologize if it's too small for you, but the red dots on the map, on the Google map on the right side of your screen, illustrate the locations of all the 16 flashing beacons kind of on a map view. And on the left is the table that was included within your staff report with the table location of all the maps. And if you focus in on the left table here, the locations that have an asterisk next to them are locations that have some type of failed equipment in Los Altos. So if you're looking at of the 16, how many actually work without any type of failure? There's really only 3: Edith and University. I take back like 4: Edith and University, Portland and Carmel Terrace, Homestead and Fallen Leaf, and El Monte and Mills. So those are the only locations where we don't have any failed equipment. All of the other sites have some type of damaged equipment that needs to be replaced. So I'm going to walk you quickly through what is out in Los Altos today. So the majority of our equipment installations are along San Antonio Road. And along San Antonio Road, we use equipment from a company called Silicon Constellations. So these include the LED embedded kind of signs on the pole shafts. You should have one kind of per direction. You see the one back here. This happens to be San Antonio at Hillview. And we also have, with that, kind of in pavement lights, and a lot of the in pavement lights at all of the locations along San Antonio are failed. At most locations, we have around a 70% failure rate on these cans. And we've been slowly repairing a lot of the signs over time, but it's really been hitting our traffic signal maintenance budget, which is the same contract that we use to do our signal maintenance around town. The last few installations that have happened in Los Altos are from a company called TAPCO, and this is the more modern rectangular rapid flashing beacon system that you see here kind of towards the center of the image. This happens to be the newest installation along El Monte Avenue that was put in as part of the mobility enhancements that we did on that street. We also have equipment from another company called JSF Technologies, very similar to the TAPCO gear. It's also a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and there are some old abandoned pavement lights that currently don't work either. But this system is very similar to the TAPCO system that was installed in this image up here. This was installed just last year. This system's about 4 or 5 years old. Lastly, we have only a single installation of a company called Lane Light, and this happens to be the crossing on Edith Avenue, just to the west of Foothill Expressway at University. And at this location, we have can lights in combination with an LED embedded sign, and so that's the installation at this location. This installation, my understanding, is around 7 years old. What we're recommending at staff level and are hoping to get concurrence from the commission tonight is to standardize on the TAPCO equipment that's shown in the image here from the most recent installation at El Monte Avenue. One of the reasons for requesting this is that if we try to keep the different manufacturer types at each location, when we put this bid package out, we're going to have different complexity levels and trying to obtain equipment from different manufacturers, or the contractor will, because the different manufacturers have different lead times. TAPCO has the fastest lead time for this type of equipment. And so that's one of the main reasons why we're recommending TAPCO. TAPCO is probably the more popular installation type of rectangular rapid flashing beacon systems around the Bay Area and around the state of California. But that specific equipment introduces some benefits that the other solutions don't offer, including the use of what are called accessible pedestrian signal push buttons, or APS buttons. These are similar to the ones you see at traffic zones that talk to you. So, if you're at a traffic zone, you push a button that it will say, wait to cross the street. Here, when you push the buttons, they'll tell you warning lights are on, cross street with caution. So that audible messaging is something that's really specific to the TAPCO equipment that the other manufacturers won't offer. This specific manufacturer does also offer a wave or touchless actuation feature on the buttons, where you can just wave your hand in front of it to actuate it, rather than just having to push the button like you do at some of the other sites. And that's also a feature specific to TAPCO. One of the reasons why we're recommending it at the staff level is because the signs that are above the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, that's just a standard static or aluminum sign. So those are the most costly repair items that we have for the installations along San Antonio Avenue, which is the Silicon Valley Constellation signs. Each of those signs cost several $1,000s each time they break down, and they have a lead time of 3 to 4 months. Versus these static signs, we can actually buy those off the shelf at any manufacturer if we ever have a need to replace the sign. And if the rectangular rapid beacon bars themselves fail, it's an off-the-shelf item that we can grab at any time. All of the equipment is solar, and they have kind of a wireless communication. So we usually have a pole with 2 RRFBs at each side of the crosswalk, and they're kind of wireless. They talk to one another without the need to do any type of conduit work or saw cutting in the pavement to link up the signposts. That's a huge benefit for us, because along San Antonio Road on the Silicon Valley Constellation sites, everything's saw cut into the ground. So if we were to try and repair those locations, we'd have to build a new conduit network that would prolong the installation and likely put us in a position where we wouldn't have the repairs done before the start of the next school year. Lastly, one of the benefits of the TAPCO equipment is that they do come with the option to buy a spotlight. And so when you push the button at nighttime or during dusk or early morning, the crosswalks actually get illuminated. That's a big benefit to us on the engineering side for safety of the public, because even though the lights flash, pretty brightly at nighttime, you also get that white spotlight at the landing where the pedestrians are actually pushing the button. That's just an extra way to make sure that motorists are kind of able to make eye contact with pedestrians and vice versa. So those are the main reasons why we're recommending standardization on the TAPCO equipment. And we'd like to go ahead and move forward with repairing all of those 12 locations that have some type of damaged equipment. And we would replace them all with the TAPCO gear. The main reason why we're bringing this to you tonight is that there is understanding from us at the staff side that there's been a long-term interest by residents to kind of hold on to that equipment that's currently installed along San Antonio Road. But that equipment is just more costly. It's not as reliable, and it results in a lot of downtime for us at the city. And we really want to get away from that type of gear and standardize on something citywide. It's a lot easier for our maintenance contractor to who stocks a lot of this gear already, to just grab something off their shelf. They don't even have to go back to the manufacturer. It's just in their warehouse, for quick deployment. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have or comments from the public.
Thank you, Jaime, for your informative presentation. We're gonna take commissioner questions first, then we'll take public questions and comments, and then we'll come back to the commission for discussion and direction on this item. So let me start first with commissioner comments, and Commissioner Katz, you are first.
Thank you. First, Jaime, I think this is a terrific idea. I use the crosswalks on San Antonio Road all the time. And I both drive San Antonio and I walk and I bike on San Antonio. And I will concur that the reliability of the flashing crosswalks is sporadic. And I think it's really dangerous because as a pedestrian or a cyclist, when you press the button, you assume it's going to work and you just head across. And then when it doesn't work, it's a surprise. So I think replacing them makes all the sense in the world. The one question I have is about how well the new system will work on a 4-lane, heavily trafficked road where you've got a lot of trucks as well as automobile vehicles, when you've got potentially a pedestrian entering the crosswalk and the view of that pedestrian is blocked by a vehicle, a large vehicle. Without the flashing lights in the pavement, will the car in the center lanes have a clear view of the flashing rectangular signal?
Thank you. Yeah, so what the target will be for us as part of the design process is where we have a wider street. I'm going to focus in specifically on San Antonio as an example. Where we have a median on San Antonio Road, if we can, we actually want to add a third pole to make sure that when someone pushes a button at the crosswalks, at the ends of the crosswalk, they actually there will be a total of 6 flashing beacons. And with this specific equipment that we're recommending with that audible or APS equipment, the pedestrian is going to get a message that the light's actually turned on. That doesn't happen consistently in Los Altos today at the different crosswalks. So one of the acknowledgements, the verbal message, lights are on, cross with caution, that alone is a big benefit for the pedestrians crossing in Los Altos.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Ambiel, you have questions?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Katz, for that question. That was my number one question. So appreciate that and your response. I was concerned about that 4-lane stretch. You talked a lot about the benefits of relying on a single vendor to supply consistent solutions throughout the city. What's the city's viewpoint on being locked into that single vendor and the risks that that certainly entails if that vendor were to no longer be in business? How do you intend to sort of balance that risk?
Thank you, Suzanne. That's actually one of the main reasons why we're recommending TAPCO. TAPCO isn't just a rectangular rapid flashing beacon vendor. They sell a whole suite of traffic products and are a leader in the industry in the development of this and other technology. Some of the other equipment vendors like Silicon Constellations, for example, which is the equipment that's currently on San Antonio Road, haven't really innovated their product since it was initially deployed. They've lost a lot of market share. They are more difficult to get repair parts for. And so even though we'd be locking in on a vendor with TAPCO, TAPCO has a fairly good pricing structure. I find it to be one of the more cost-effective systems for the systems that we recommend to other city customers around the Bay Area. So I don't think price gouging is going to be a specific issue for us. But more importantly, the equipment is going to be off the shelf, so be quick to get.
Thank you for that. And then my final question, and it may be a little bit of a rabbit hole, so I apologize in advance, Chair, if this is a rabbit hole. How does this selection for these crosswalks impact the flashing stop signs that currently exist? I think in one intersection where Springer and El Monte meet. Will this impact that in any way? Will we revisit that? Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, I'll try and answer that question if I can. So this project focuses in on the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacon systems at crosswalk sites. So that's specifically the yellow kind of bar flashing systems that were in the images we showed you earlier from TAPCO on El Monte. Los Altos does only have one stop sign flashing location that is at the intersection of Springer and El Monte. That isn't an element of this project. I know we've had some discussions in the past, probably 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe 2.5 or 3, regarding should that be replaced with something that has a timer so it doesn't flash all day and night. I would say that's something maybe is probably for a different discussion. If you'd like to have that come back as a different item, I would suggest that the chair coordinate with Marisa, but it isn't the focus of this project.
Thank you for your response. That's all my questions, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Snyder.
Hi, so Jaime, thanks for the presentation. I like the idea of going to standardized items, systems, but I'm wondering, is there a higher cost with that one particular, the TAPCO versus the other ones?
No, the equipment would actually be more cost effective because the only technology pieces that we're buying are the bars themselves and the solar panels and boxes that go with them and the buttons. With some of the other systems that we have in place today, where there's like an in-pavement can light, that requires a more extensive construction process to remove the old can lights, put new can lights in, saw cut them, or add conduit network. With this TAPCO system being wireless, the cost of the materials go down, but more importantly, it's the cost of the installation that goes down for us.
Okay, you also mentioned there's an optional spotlight. How much extra cost is that?
Oh, I think the spotlight's like $300 extra. It's not very expensive.
Oh, that's not essentially.
It's a no-brainer.
So essentially, we should probably be putting spotlights on every installation.
As of right now, that's what the plan would be.
Okay. So you also said, so in the presentation, the table 1 shows that there are, with a star, that there are 9 problem locations, but you'd said that there's 12 locations you're going to work on. I was wondering what the difference there.
Yeah, so the repairs vary. If I miscounted on my slideshow, I apologize. But yeah, the standard repair varies from site to site. In some locations, it's the cans that are out or the buttons that are out. Some locations, it's the signs that are out. So you know the repairs vary from site to site.
Right. No, I understand that.
That
Was what was listed, but you had said 12, and so I was looking at 12. What you said 12 versus the 9. So.
I may have just miscounted. I apologize.
Okay. So do we have a list of other locations we would want to add to this 16 after we get these installed?
So all the locations where, as of today, we would be considering future RRFB installation sites would be in alignment with the locations within the Complete Streets Master Plan suggested route to school improvement maps. And so a lot of those maps for schools suggested new locations. That's not part of this project. This project is just, hey, let's fix what's broken, that's existing, get it up and running before the start of the school year. And as a reminder, in the discussions that we had with the commission and the city council's current adopted budget, there's money for next fiscal year to, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think it was $250,000. And that money was to do some of the longer term improvements that were recommended in those school improvement maps, which would fund things like additional RFB site installations or curb ramps along suggested routes. We haven't come together with a game plan on that yet, but this commission will weigh in heavily when we're ready to start spending that money next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
And next I see, I think the vice chair of Encatraman is next with his hand up, and I see Nadeem, I think you're after that. Okay.
Thank you. Jaime, correct me. Can you tell me what the what was the sign? If you see these flashing beacons on the Mountain View side in San Antonio, I think there are 4 or 5 different places. So what you would be installing, it would be very similar to those.
Let me put the slideshow back up if that's okay. Maybe we can walk through it that way. So the installation sites along San Antonio Road include these LED embedded signs. It's a thicker sign. It's not a static sign. There's technology and kind of embedded within the sign itself. That's the solar panel that kind of charges the sign and powers the in-pavement lights that are in the roadway. With the RRFB systems, any site that has a can light today would just be abandoned. And as resurfacing projects move forward, those cans would just be removed in the future, but they would be abandoned today. And
I understand. The question I had was, so there's the kind of system that you're proposing, the new ones, the TAPCO. There's things that are similar to that on the Mountain View side, right? And it's on San Antonio. I see like 3 or 4 different places where they have these rapid flashing beacons. So would what you're proposing be very similar?
So I know Mountain View is a TAPCO customer. I'm not specifically sure at the locations that you're thinking if it's TAPCO, but this is the most common type of equipment installation for RRFB. So it would be very similar to this. We would just be adding that extra spotlight.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm also saying is I think on the Mountain View side, if I'm not mistaken, they also have additional lights in the medians. And even if there are no medians, they found a way to make a solution to have those flashing beacons in the middle of the roads as well. So something to consider.
Sure.
The other question I had was, are there standards for what those beacons and the flashing needs to be like? And so the question I'm asking is, are there more than one manufacturer that's able to do that in the future, if in case we need to have a second source?
Yes to all the questions there. So there is a standard for the construction and application of rectangular rapid flashing beacons that's in manuals that identify standard highway devices, including the manual or uniform traffic control devices, or the METCD. You hear us use that acronym a lot when we're talking about engineering standards. So other manufacturers build equipment to that standard. TAPCO is just probably the largest one.
Okay, and then that's kind of the third question is sort of related to that is, are those flashing beacons, have those standards common for all type of streets? And is there a dependence on the speed and the traffic volume on streets as well?
So the length of the duration of the flash, yes, that does vary on the length of the crosswalk. And then the number of devices that are installed is geometric specific. So I would concur with your prior recommendation that, hey, find a way to add a pole in a median if you can. And in some places in Los Altos, like San Antonio, that should be a lot easier to do. But when we're looking at projects for maybe for next year, and you guys are weighing in on those designs, we'd want to make sure that we kind of get ahead of you guys and try and put some of those extra poles in.
Okay. I saw that when you initially mentioned TAPCO and how easy it is to, or how difficult it is to sort of replace or repair non-functioning devices. Do you have a rough estimate of, let's say there's a problem with it, what would be the frame you would be able to fix that?
So if we had a failure at, say, this location on El Monte, if by the time we put the call in, it should take us about a week to get the parts and get the signs repaired.
As opposed to the silicone systems?
Takes
what would that? Okay,
several
all
months.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Thank you. And Commissioner Maloof.
Thank you. A lot of good questions. First, Jaime, please educate me. I see crosswalks with 2 white lines, crosswalks with ladders, crosswalks with yellow ladders, crosswalk with yellow ladders and 2 yellow lines. Tell me, what does what?
That's a really good discussion topic for us. So we've been trying to standardize in the signage and striping kind of concepts being used in Los Altos. This is something I think you'll be of great interest to you whenever we come back with you on the upcoming street resurfacing program, because we're implementing a lot of striping and signage changes in Los Altos this summer for the recommendations of the school improvement maps as part of the Complete Streets Master Plan program. And so in the past, we've had the parallel bar kind of regular crosswalks that you've seen since the 1960s and 70s. You know, we've seen kind of some ladder crosswalks. I don't know if can't recall if in Los Altos we have any kind of like what I call just a piano key style or continental crosswalk where it's just a 24-inch bar spaced 24 inches apart. We've been trying to standardize where we use the ladder crosswalks. Yellow is along a suggested route to school. So if it's a crosswalk that services a school and it was put in there for that purpose, you'll typically see a yellow crosswalk. If it's a crossing location that isn't specific to a suggested route to school, just for another reason, you'll typically see a white crosswalk. That becomes the difference. What we're trying to do is, whether it's white or yellow, we want to use the ladder crosswalks. We recommend at our company at Traffic, we recommend against the continental crosswalk onlys on wider, busier streets, because although they look really nice when you first put them in about a year and a half or two, when the roadway markings fade, the crosswalks are actually harder to see on a wider street at faster speeds, because you don't have that perpendicular standard parallel bar crosswalk in addition to the ladders. I just had a huge discussion with San Jose and Saratoga earlier today, because there's developing standards and more cities recommend the continental. And then what I find it is, when I work with cities, well, I got to change it in 2-3 years. We got to fix from continental or piano keys to ladders, because the visibility just goes down significantly when you have continental only markings. So those are some of the kinds of changes that you're going to see, hopefully in your April presentations.
Yeah, and so thanks a lot for the clarification. By the way, that was highly instructional to me. I had no idea that the yellow one meant suggested route to school. If I didn't know that as a commissioner, I don't even know how the parents are going to figure that out. That's for a different day. But I think the reason why I bring it up is I think the choice of your flashing light has to be consistent with the choice of the crosswalk marking, that visibility. They go hand in hand. You can't have poor marking on one end and high visibility on the other end. They have to kind of be hand in hand. That's why I'm asking the question. So now let's talk about TAPCO. I would love to understand for all those options, what are the upfront costs, including installation, and what are the maintenance costs? Just rough order of magnitude.
So I'll just reference some real numbers because we just finished some installations in Pleasant Hill earlier this past fall. So a complete RFB installation, like you see in the pictures that we shared for TAPCO, the double-sided RFBs, the solar panels, the audible messaging, push buttons, all of the equipment materials, roughly around $7,000 per pole, and then the construction of the pole and foundations itself, roughly another $6,000 to $7,000. So call it 15 grand, per pole. Not cheap.
For TAPCO.
That's the TAPCO gear. That's correct.
And what about the Silicon Constellation one, just for reference? What would it be?
So the last repairs that we did, which were just to repair one sign, the sign itself was close to about $4,000.
Okay. And for the TAPCO, what is the expected life on that device?
So we typically see around a 7 to 8 year life before we start to see or need for replacement of something, whether it be the button or the RRFB beacon itself.
Got it. And what's the warranty that TAPCO extends on these devices?
They're all the same, about a minimum 1 year manufacturer's warranty.
So not much then. Okay. Got it. All right. And then last question to you, Jaime, is if TAPCO went out of business tomorrow, what would you do?
If TAPCO went out of business, again, there are other manufacturers that develop RRFB systems, so it wouldn't be very difficult to replace them. And my understanding with the technology is you can actually take the RRFB and just swap it out from a different manufacturer. As long as it gets that actuation, it should work.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And Suresh, did you have more questions?
So no, I had one more question, but Nadeem just answered, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Steve?
Stacey, just a quick follow-up. So if we're going to replace 12 current crosswalks, is that the plan?
So it'd be 12 times a minimum of 2. So we're talking about up to 24 poles, right? And then maybe some locations.
And on San Antonio, it would be 3 each, right? Because you have the median.
Where the median does exist.
Yeah. So let's say you're talking about 27 to 30 total. I don't know if that's the right number, but at $15,000 each, you're talking somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 for the full project. Is that about right?
That's about the numbers that Jim and I discussed about a month ago. So that sounds about right.
Okay, so that's clarifying. And then the second thing, I just like to, I'd like to thank Nadeem for that. But since I've been on the commission, the subject of crosswalk consistency has come up several times. And I think it would be terrific if our staff put a stake in the ground and said, this going forward, this is how we're going to do crosswalks under these kinds of circumstances. So it's somewhere in writing that the commission understands, the staff understands, planning understands. And a year from now, we're not having the same discussion.
Thank you, Steve. Just to conclude the questions here, I have a quick couple ones. One of mine was going to be about costing and budget, so a lot of that's been answered already. But as I recall, this was also in budget planning for, it was a capital improvement project for a long time. So are there some funds already set aside for this, or is this part of the new, does this need to be part of a new budget ask entirely?
So as of right now, we're looking to fund this through 2 CIP fund sources. I don't know the specific numbers. Yeah. There is a specific CIP that was set aside for this maintenance project for these flashing beacon site locations. And then the remainder of the funding, when this goes out to bid, would come from the bicycle pedestrian enhancements CIP. I don't remember the CIP number though. So those would be the two fund sources. It would be all capital.
Yeah.
Capital funding.
Okay. Thank you. And those CIPs already have funds designated to them that you can pull out of? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then my other question is, in terms of a place like San Antonio, where it's a wide road and there's the median, you talked about putting an additional sign in the median, which I think is a good idea. But is there, what are the best practices or the recommendations to also put additional push button or hand wave things in those mediums? Because I know there's been cases of pedestrians getting kind of trapped in those islands in San Antonio because they're not getting across in time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that will help that is the messaging. Hey, your lights are on. That we don't get that today, so that may be one of the reasons why sometimes pedestrians get stranded, is they're just not taking advantage of all the time that's being given to them. So the audible messaging that we're proposing through the TAPCO size would solve that problem. I think the installation of a potential third pole along corridors like San Antonio, it's really going to be geometric specific. If you recall, down most of San Antonio Road, there's also a high power transmission line down the center of the street. And some of those poles are actually right at where the crosswalks bisect the median. So if we do add third poles, in some cases, we may have the pole kind of on the opposite side of the intersection. So at least when you're driving, you're kind of seeing three sets of poles, or again, three lights flashing at you in each direction. But for the pedestrian, that means that we can't have a third button in the middle, right? And so typically we time the flash to make sure that a pedestrian can get all the way across. And we usually use a more conservative walking speed of like 3 feet per second. And so that should give pedestrians an ample time to cross the street. I think that would be our preference versus adding the extra button in the middle. But I think it's site specific. If we have the pole and we can build it really close to the nose of the median where it touches the crosswalk, hey, why not, right? Let's just go ahead and do it. But I think in most cases, it can be a geometric specific constraint.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to open it up now for public comments. So anyone in the public who has a comment, you can go ahead and raise your hands. And if you don't know the raise hand button, I think you just click on the participants button down in the bottom of your screen. And then when that pops up, you click on raise hand in the lower right box, or in the box on the right hand side. So feel free to raise your hands. I'm going to call on our first public speaker. The public speakers will have 3 minutes. So Roberta Phillips, please go ahead.
Hi. So I live on San Antonio. Hi, I live on San Antonio Road. And so I'm very aware that they've been broken for a lot of years. I did go today to El Monte and the flashing lights that you showed in the photograph. Mills, yes. Got out of my car, pressed the button. And so my comment is, number one, yes, I've seen many, many times people getting stuck in the middle of San Antonio Road and cannot cross the other side. So I would, number one, encourage, the third pole in the middle. When I went to Mills, I pressed the button again to try to see if I could get more time, but it would not give me more time. So somebody could be walking past a pole, wave the hand, the lights go on, somebody comes up 10 or 20 or 30 seconds later, it doesn't work then to press the button again to get more time. So I think that is something that I observed today that I think is important. I think a spotlight is a terrible idea. Please stop. If somebody is walking at night, hopefully they have enough common sense to bring a flashlight with them. Like I said, I think that somebody should have to actually press a button, because we don't want people just walking by waving, because kids can do that because it's fun. I think it needs to be a deliberate act. So I'm against the hand motion option. And again, I think you do need consistency. When I was looking at the the one on Mills and Almonte, again, it's like Nadeem mentioned, we have a burgundy section, we have a bike line section, we've got yellow crossing lines. You really do need consistency across the board, and hope again. And I say that with respect. I know that you're trying to have more safety, but sometimes you can do something simple that works, and you don't need to have all the high-tech gadgets in order for something to be functional. So again, the spotlights, I think, are a bad idea. Poles in the medium, yes. Hand motion, no. And you've got to figure out a way that if somebody comes up after somebody else comes up, that the time can be extended, so you don't get people stuck in the middle of the road.
Thank you, Roberta, for your
Thank
comment.
you.
So any other public members have comments? I'm not seeing any other hands up, but feel free to quickly raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Yeah, by the way, Stacey, it's under reactions. In order to raise your hand, you don't go to participants, you go to react.
Thank you, Roberta. I think the public must have a different view than we do. So if okay.
I'm looking, it's under
Thank
reactions.
Thank you for sharing that with everyone. I'm not seeing anyone else with their hand up, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission for a discussion and sort of our direction for staff. Is there anyone? I see Suzanne, you're volunteering. Yay, go ahead.
Seems it's my role. So my overall reaction to this is thank you, Jaime, for finding a consistent solution that will work throughout Los Altos. As our prior speaker said, consistency is important because consistency then infers and helps to educate consistent response and behavior by all participants, whether you are a pedestrian, you are a cyclist, or you're a motor vehicle operator. So I do like the consistency of the solution across the board. I am in support of trying to add a median light flashing beacon for the wider, higher speed locations. And I'm sure that the traffic engineers can identify what those are and adequately arm those locations. I think that the accessibility of having the wave at the pole is really important for those that may have a hard time reaching a button to press or be reluctant to touch a surface. I think having the wave at the button is important. I am in favor of the spotlight. Dusk is a very dangerous time. Dawn is a very dangerous time for pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicle operators. Any additional light to shine on the subject is, I think, critical, especially as we look forward to the permanent installation of daylight savings time. We will have children out in the morning and it will be pitch black. So spotlights, I think, are an important addition. So I'm in support of this. I'm a little concerned about a single vendor solution, but I'm hopeful that the city will manage the risks adequately. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, for your concise, excellent comments. Who would like to go next? Anyone want to go next? Go. Did I hear a voice or I saw Nadeem raise his hand?
Oh, if someone else can go ahead. I don't want to just bypass.
Yeah, that was actually me. I just wanted to make a note. I know Roberta asked about the flash, when you push the button, if it adds more time. That's actually not the way they work. They don't compound. When you push the button, it doesn't add more time to it. So once the button's pushed and the beacons are active, another button won't be locked until the current actuation is complete. And then you got to push the button again to start it over again. That's how all of the systems work. That's how they're identified to work and standardized within the MUTCD.
Thank you, Jaime, for that educational information. I think it's helpful for everyone as we learn the detailed technology, how all these things function. So I
As
think
long
maybe-
as TAPCO doesn't put a credit card slider that you have to push your credit card in it to cross the road, I'm okay with it. Joking aside, Jaime, I think, and Marissa, I think, I'm very supportive of that, but I do have some thoughts for you to put for future items that you bring in front of this commission. When you bring recommendations of this type, please help us understand all the aspects of the supplier. In this case, the cost aspects, the warranty aspects, the life maintenance aspects. All of those are important for us to consider. So thank you for proposing what you have in there. I'm supportive. I think I understand that Mountain View is also on board with it, so that's great. But please share with us the whole picture and not just bits and pieces of it. The good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. We want to understand all of it. And then the last thought, and that's more really more food for thought for the city. We're a small town, and I suspect that since probably everyone out there is going to be putting poles of this kind, while it is the lead time tends to be short, it is not guaranteed it's always going to be short. So I don't know to what extent we as a city, from a supplier perspective, we can pool our resources with Mountain View and or Palo Alto or Sunnyvale or some of the adjacent towns next to us who have 4 or 5 times the population that we do. And in that respect, we may end up having a bit more security in the supply chain. I get nervous about those suppliers. While TAPCO is a big company, and I don't expect them to go out of business anytime soon, companies do go out of business. And I want to make sure that we have some degree of security in that respect. And I suspect that TAPCO manufactures this stuff in China, unless you tell me otherwise, which means they will be hit by certain supply chain constraints. These are my thoughts.
Thank you. Suresh.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo a lot of the comments that both Suzanne and Nadeem mentioned. I'm generally supportive of the solution. I think 2 things: consistency and availability. I think both are key. The fact that we're consistent across all the solution, all the streets, and the fact that if there is failure, we're able to address that quickly, I think is key to safety. I do think that those the Silicon Valley Systems solutions are more visible just because they're across the street. So I do whatever it's possible to make sure that visibility, especially on San Antonio and some of the higher speed streets, the visibility is a key consideration when you are designing and placing the new flashing beacon systems. And the other thing that I did want to say, and I think Nadeem mentioned, was when there are some solutions like this that are new to us in the city and the commission, it would be good to come to us with almost like an educational materials that goes all the way from how these systems work, what they cost, and so on. So please assume that we're sort of novices in this when you come to us, because this is fairly new to the city, and it would be helpful to have, with the decisions and sort of educating us and the public to better make those decisions. And then the last thing I was going to say was when you're replacing in San Antonio, and maybe it's a question, would you replace all the lights in one shot? So there's consistency across that as well. Or would you be doing it piecemeal? Because it seems like you'll have to dig these lights out of the system. So it was just maybe you'll come back to us as to what the plan is to replace these and what it would take. But it would be good if you can do it in one shot. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you have any comments or answers right now on that. There was a question in there from Suresh about the timeline, or if you want to come back.
Yeah, no, so the thought process here is by putting this out to bid, we would do everything on San Antonio all at once. All the San Antonio sites specifically have some type of a failure. The contractor will build everything at the same time, and we would want to swap that out. I just scanned through Mountain View, and I just confirmed at least one location I saw on Grant Road, I think it's called, or Castro Street, they are using TAPCO. So the equipment we're proposing is consistent with what I see and online on Google Street View through Mountain View.
Thank you. Cindy, Tom, Steve, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything else. No, okay. So I think excellent feedback. So from the 3 commissioners we've heard from already, I'm just going to add a couple things. The first one is the add Homestead and Fallen Leaf to your list of broken locations. And every time you guys fix that one, a few days later, it's broken again. And believe me, I know, because I go through there every day during school route times. So, and I'm happy to talk to you offline about details if you want details. The second thing I wanted to say is please take a look at San Antonio and figure out what the best solution is, because I've seen, when I've been driving on San Antonio, I've seen pedestrians trapped in the middle. And I don't know if it's a case of they just walk slower than someone else does, or if it's a case of they approach the crosswalks, someone has been there before them, the light is on, and then they enter the crosswalk and then they get stuck in the middle and the cars are going really fast and don't want to stop for them. So I don't know if the solution is make the flashing light time longer, which I know you slows the, makes the traffic stop longer, or if it's another button in the middle, but please look at that and sort of figure out what that engineering solution is. That's my ask. And I've heard members of the community also kind of raise issues about that. And then excellent comments from Suzanne and Nadim and Suresh, and I'm not going to repeat them all, but I do just want to echo what Nadim said, Marisa, for the vendors and the warranties and all those things. We tend to ask those questions under the direction of our former chair, Malouf, who asks those questions regularly, and they've been very informative. So that'll just help you prepare next time when these items come to us, because it's really important. I think that's everything we have for this item. Did you need an official vote from us, or it's looks like it's been pretty, everyone's been pretty much on the same page, but if you want to vote, we can take a vote.
It's okay with you, Marisa. I think a vote would be good, just so we have it for the record.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't know if we have a suggested motion on there, but I think something along approving the implementation of these consistent TAPCO systems throughout. Suresh, is that your hand up to make a motion? Or is that just left up from before? Because I'm now looking for someone to make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Yeah. I move for this commission to recommend the adoption of the new suggested fast flashing beacon systems across the FFRBs. RFBs, okay. Across the 16 locations as suggested by the city staff.
I second the motion, subject to the addition of the investigation of median lighting and additional buttons.
That's great. So is that, and those are amendments, Suzanne?
Yes, that is correct. That is an amendment.
And
thank you.
Suresh, are you accepting those amendments?
I do, and I think I should add the city to investigate the 2 additional intersections that you mentioned as well.
Thank you.
And I second that amendment to the amendments.
Excellent. Excellent. And now I think we will, if there's no more discussion on that, let's take a vote. So
all those in favor?
Yep, hands up. So that passes unanimously, 7-0. Excellent.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing this item. I think since the time I've been on the commission, I've heard residents talking about, these broken lights. So will be wonderful to have them fixed. Let's move on to the next item. And this actually takes us into the informational items for the monthly staff report. Marisa, please go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see. So a few updates. Most of you probably know by now that the Complete Streets Master Plan went to City Council last week for another study session. It was the follow-up study session that Council requested at the previous study session. So A couple of months ago, they gave us all their comments, and then we incorporated all the comments and brought it back for another study session to go over them all. We were hoping to get it adopted that night, but they want us to come back one more time for adoption, and we're going to have to make a few more edits. So that will hopefully be happening in the next couple of months. Also, that same night, last Tuesday, the El Camino Real bike lanes project, as part of the Caltrans resurfacing project, went to council as well. And that item was approved by council. It was 3-2, so it was a little bit close. It was about an hour and 45 minutes of presentation and discussion by the council and public comments. So that was very exciting that it passed in the end. And thank you all for all of your hard work in supporting that effort. Next item is the Fremont Ped Bridge is rolling. I think I might have told you previously, we got 65% plans that are being reviewed by city staff now. And we will likely bring that item back at the upcoming April meeting, the CSC meeting, and notify the public and perhaps use that as a time for some public discussion and outreach. The last thing on my list is a county project that I found out about today to implement the green wave feature along Foothill Expressway at all the signalized intersections. So the green wave is when the timing is worked out such that a bike should be able to make it through all of the intersections in one swoop. Jaime might be able to tell us more about the county project. I don't know, Jaime, you have any more information than I do?
Yeah, so just for quick background for the community and for the commission. So the city received a grant from the VTA Vehicle Registration Fee Program about 4 or 5 years ago. And that included traffic signal controller upgrades around the city that we did a couple of years ago. And it also funded the installation of what's called a traffic signal adaptive system along the El Monte, I'm sorry, I take that back, along San Antonio Road, Foothill Expressway, and El Monte. So I was right. And that's so that we can get people through kind of out of the downtown area, down Foothill, down El Monte to 280. And so we actually are the agency that gave the funding to the county to purchase that Synchro Green, a traffic signal adaptive system. So it's finally being implemented. It was delayed due to the Foothill Expressway construction that took place last year.
Thank you. And thank you. Go ahead, Marisa. Did you have
I was just going to say that concludes my updates.
And I see Mr. Sandoval has joined us.
If I might add, I wanted the chair, if it's okay, to give a little summary of what's going on with the budget. So we have begun the budget process for fiscal year 22-23. And it seems like every year it's a very compressed schedule. And so Marisa and I are actually meeting tomorrow to put together a draft proposal for the transportation budget. And our draft budgets are due to the city manager by next Wednesday. And then it will go to a draft will go to the Financial Commission April 25th. We'll bring you a draft of the transportation budget 2 days later. I think it's the 27th. And then the council will look at the first reading of the budget, either May 10th or May 24th to be determined. So we would definitely look forward to any comments you might have for the council at the next meeting.
Thank you, Jim. And we appreciate that the commission has an opportunity to give input on that in advance of it going to the council. So thank you for that. I just want to thank Marisa and Jaime and Jim for the staff report. And I also want to thank Marisa. I know some of us attended the city council meeting the other night and compliment you on the excellent presentation that you delivered to the city council. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So any other questions on the staff report? Nadine?
Yeah, Marisa and Jim, with the upcoming city council study session on master plan, is there anything that this commission can do for you ahead of that meeting?
So the study session already happened, and next up it
follow-up-
will
the
just
follow-up
be,
session, sorry. Yeah,
yeah,
the
so
follow-up.
next up it'll just be a consent item. There were a couple kind of brief comments on the master plan. I think the one that stands out for me is that there was a request by one council member to add kind of a subtitle to the title. So instead of Complete Streets Master Plan, they wanted to be Complete Streets Master Plan, and then some kind of subtitle that makes the point that the improvements in the master plan are geared mostly towards pedestrians and bicycles. So if you have any ideas as to what that subtitle could be, maybe think about it, email them to me in the future, and that's something that we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks or perhaps month.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I'm sure we can come up with ideas. What I was specifically referring to is to the extent that this commission is unanimous, and I think we have been unanimous in the past. I would really like this commission to send a unanimous recommendation to City Council to adopt the CSMP. So if this commission feels strongly about it, as I do, I'm going to recommend that we basically say we strongly recommend to City Council to adopt the CSMP.
Do we need a motion to do that?
I don't know if we need a motion as much as Nadeem is saying he wants, is everybody strongly in favor of that? Maybe just raise your hand if you're strongly in favor and we'll know that and move forward with that. I assume that we are.
I think that's out of protocol, Stacey's. I don't think we can indicate a vote one way or the other. That has to be an agendized item.
Okay, well, I wasn't asking for a vote. I was just asking for a, see if there's support. But I believe this is something that this commission has already, thank you, Suzanne. This commission has already voted to approve this item. So then I would say the protocol probably is for the chair and the vice chair to support that towards City Council, since we don't have time to have anything on the agenda. Suresh.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of protocol, frankly. I'm gonna sort of push it a little bit here. I think this item has been approved. All we're trying to do here is reiterate that approval. We're not changing the approval. We're not asking for a new vote. This is reiterating what was already approved unanimously in the past. I mean, that's a strong statement to make.
Suresh, are you wanting to speak, or are you?
Yes, I just see that Councilmember Weinberg has his hands up.
Oh, I missed that. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Weinberg.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for all your work this evening, and congratulations to the new chair and the vice chair. I don't think that it would be out of order at all for the commission to, well, you know what, I was about to say it wouldn't be out of order for the commission to take a motion regarding the Complete Streets Master Plan, but as I'm talking it through, it was not agendized. So you probably should not make a motion. I do think that it would be in order for the staff report, which will accompany the next council meeting, our packet, to note that there was some discussion about it at the end of the meeting. But it's probably not okay for you to take a vote because it was not agendized and it didn't give the public an opportunity to communicate. I did want to clarify at least my understanding procedurally of what has happened and what is going to happen with the Complete Streets Master Plan. We were advised by the city attorney that at the study session, the council could have adopted the Complete Streets Master Plan, but it's the practice in the city for the council not to take action like that at a study session. So a straw poll was taken to see whether or not there was a majority of the council that was in favor of it. And that straw poll indicated that there was a majority in favor of it. So the Complete Streets Master Plan, as I understand it, is going to be on our agenda for our next meeting, which I believe is April 12th, but it will be a consent item. It's still possible that someone will try to pull it off of consent, but that's sort of where things stand right now.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Sandoval.
If I may, I don't believe we're putting it on the April 12th agenda. There were some comments for some minor edits that were added, and I think the team is regrouping to do those. So I would estimate that accordingly we would bring it back in late April, early May to the council.
Great. I stand or sit corrected.
No problem.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, if it's on the city council agenda before our next commission meeting and we don't have it on our agenda, given that we already voted to pass this, I believe it would be protocol of the chair and vice chair to give that, to inform city council that the commission unanimously supported this. So if anybody, I see heads nodding yes, if anybody disagrees with that, please, speak up. Now, because otherwise that will be likely what happens going forward, since we have one of the commissioners who've asked for that. And then I'm going to call first on Councilmember Weinberg. I don't know if you just put your hand back up or if that's stuck up from before. If you have something else to say, please go ahead.
Nope, that's from before. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's no problem. And then if not, I also see we have a member of the public with their hand up. So this is just to let everyone know where we're at, the monthly staff report for items not on the agenda. So I'm going to ask the member of the public to speak about that item, anything on that item, and you have 3 minutes. Please, Roberta Phillips, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Jonathan Weinberg. This was not agendized to write an additional letter. If I weren't here on the meeting, I have no idea. Please, follow the rules. I know you're passionate about it, but we don't need your thumb on the scale again. I think you have a long, extensive report, and do you want us as residents to go organize ourselves to put pressure on the council? I just don't think it's fair, and I don't think it follows the process. So thank you, Mr. Weinberg, for bringing that up. I think it's important for all of us.
Thank you, Roberta. Are you finished with your comment?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your input this evening. I'm going to close out the item on the monthly staff report and move on to commissioners' reports and comments. Do any commissioners have reports and comments this evening? Either raise your hand. Oh, Steve.
I have a comment. And is this an appropriate time to talk about an additional agenda item?
That'll be the next thing, I think.
Okay, I'll hold my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else with comments or reports? I'm not seeing anyone else. So let's move to the next agenda item, which is potential future agenda items. So Steve, I can call on you now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations, Stacey and Suresh. I thought you were both terrific in your first chair and vice chair meeting tonight. So well done. On terms of a future agenda item, it would really help me, and I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, if we could have a very brief recap, since we now have a new chair and vice chair, of what are the standing committees that are in existence right now and who's on them and what the expectations are. Because we touch base sometimes at the very end of the meeting on requests for people to join a subcommittee, but we don't really talk about them very much during our meetings. And I would just like to get a sense of who's doing what, and and assess whether it's still relevant.
Got it. Other future agenda item requests?
Oh, and then the second one I have is just to have a little better foresight as to when our next meeting with the Planning Commission will be. And at that point, we can talk about maybe some strategic adds to that.
Anyone else with future, Nadeem?
Yeah, I want to actually echo what Steve said. First, really thanks to you, Stacey and Suresh, for conducting your first outstanding meeting here. I should have stepped down much earlier. The item I want to actually suggest for us to put on the list. Look, we've got a very busy work plan ahead of us. So I don't want to put more stuff on it, but I think there's one item that I thought was very useful in the past, and that was a joint meeting with Mountain View. And we should think about redoing that. We have so much stuff that is now intersecting both cities. Starting with El Camino, of course, is one thing that somehow has passed. But I'm sure there's many more now in terms of the outline of the bike lanes and et cetera, what they want to do on their side. We've got a school that's supposed to be built up in the next couple of years. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we should think about. What is it that we should be thinking ahead as a joint in the joint meeting?
Yep, good idea. Anyone else with potential future agenda items? And I see Roberta Phillips' hand is still up. Did you want to talk, Roberta, about this item, potential future agenda items, or is your hand still up from before?
Oh, thank you. I'll remind you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So let's see what our next agenda item is. Oh, it's adjournment. So we're going to adjourn this meeting, and Nadeem always looks at the clock to see how we've done on time tonight. 7:47, we're adjourning the meeting. So thank you, everyone, for joining our meeting this evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.